Let's apply to Southwestern Oregon Community College.
We'll start at the Oregon Goes to College page. From the College Info menu tab, we'll select Apply to College. This takes us to a page that has a lot of really great information about what we need to do to prepare before we even think about sitting down to apply. And it also has a list of the different kinds of information that we'll need to gather and have ready, as well as some tips for what we need to do when we do sit down to make the application. We already know that we're applying to Southwestern, and I've read through all that information and gathered the documents that I need, and so I'm scrolling down to find a list of all of the colleges in the state, and I'm going to choose Southwestern Oregon Community College from this list. When I click on that link, it's going to take me directly to the college's website and to a page that has a button that says Apply Here. So I'll click that and be brought to a page that asks me what kind of application I will be submitting. Now, if you're interested in the culinary or baking programs, there's a special application for you, and you'll want to click that and start through that process. The majority of students applying to SWOC directly out of high school are going to be first-time freshmen, and that's the application you'll choose and the one we're going to look at today. When I click on that, it takes me directly to the application form itself, and you can see that on the left-hand side there are 5 sections to this application, so we'll need to complete all 5 of those sections in order to submit the application. And there are 2 different types of questions here, some that have a red asterisk next to them and some that don't. The red asterisk means that this is a required question and I won't be able to move on in the application until I have answered it. Questions that don't have that are optional, and I am obviously then not required to answer them, but there may be a good reason for me to answer them. So we're going to talk about those as we go through so that you can make a decision about whether or not it makes sense for you to answer that question. The first question is asking, when do I plan to begin attending SWOC? And I'm planning to graduate in 2021 and start school the following fall, so I'll choose 2021-22 academic year, and again, I'd like to start in the fall. The majority of my classes will be taken at which campus, or will I be doing that online? My goal is to be at the Coos campus most of the time, so I'm going to choose that. If your plan is to be at the Curry campus or you want to take mostly online classes, you'll choose the appropriate answer for yourself. And enrollment status is about how many credits you'll be taking. Will you be a part-time or a full-time student? I plan to be a full-time student, so I'll choose that. This question about student housing, you'll notice that this turned into a link. So if you were to click here, you would be taken to some information to learn about student housing at Southwestern Oregon Community College, but they do have residence halls. And there is a note here about students who are required to live in the residence halls. So if this statement applies to you, you will choose, yes, I plan to live in student housing. And it does apply to me. I'm under 21, I have fewer than 45 college credits, and I live outside the college district, so I'm going to say yes. If that statement doesn't apply to you and you don't plan to live in student housing, go ahead and choose no, I don't. This question is asking when you first heard about Southwestern. They're particularly interested in learning just how their name is getting out, and so you can choose or not to provide some information here. I'll go ahead and choose that a friend told me about the college. And I can click next, and you'll notice that we've now moved on to personal information. This is the page they're going to ask me about my name and birth date and that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling this out. The first question is asking me about my legal first or given name. That is the name that is on my birth certificate, on my driver's license if I had one, on my school transcripts. This is my legal first name. I will have an opportunity to provide a different first name if I have something that I prefer to be called later, but in this case I need to provide my legal name. I also have a middle name and a last name, also called a surname. Again, the legal one here, what's on my birth certificate. Suffix is, as you can see, these are things like if you have a number or a junior after your name, you would choose that here. But again, they're giving you the instruction that you would only include that if you have if it's part of your legal name. It's not part of mine. I'm going to leave that blank. I do have a preferred name, and so I'm going to choose to enter that here. This is what I want people to call me. And if I have a different name when I was born, or a maiden name, say I have gotten married, then I will provide my previous or birth name here. If I have any other names that I've ever used, I'm going to enter those into this section. That doesn't apply to me, so I will leave it blank. And I will provide my birth date here, and it's telling me how to include that. I was born in January, so I need to include the 0 before the 1, and then enter the rest of the information. I'm required to provide my gender, or I can choose not reported, but I'm going to go ahead and choose female here, and my social security number. Now, this question mark gives some information about why they're asking for this particular information, and also where I can go to get more information about that. The most important thing to know is that Social Security number is required for students who are planning to apply for federal financial aid. That is a requirement for students who are applying for federal financial aid, and so I do need to provide that information here if I have a Social Security number. Questions about ethnicity and race are not required, but I'm going to choose to answer those questions, and I'm going to choose Hispanic and white. You can choose how you identify ethnically and racially. Citizenship status is a required question, and I'm going to choose that I'm a U.S. citizen because that's true for me. But students who are not citizens, who are permanent residents or undocumented, can attend Southwestern, and so you would choose the appropriate response for you. Doing that pops up a question about where I am, what state I'm a resident of, and there is a note that if I'm a resident of the state of Oregon, but I've been here less than about 3 months, then I need to tell which state I came from. But I've lived in Oregon my entire life, and so I'm going to choose that. You'll choose what is correct for you. This question about being a U.S. veteran or a member of the military, or the child or dependent of somebody who is a veteran, is a required question. I have no military affiliation either for myself or my parents, and so I'm choosing no. And this question is asking me about special needs accommodations. So if you have a learning difference or have other special needs for accommodations, you would choose yes. I'm going to choose no here. But this question is required, and it's because they want to be able to reach out to you and talk to you about what those accommodations might be to help you be successful. And so they need that information so that you can be as successful as possible. So I'm going to choose no. Language. This is a question about what language do I speak, or rather is English my first language? And so English is my first language, and so I'm going to leave this blank. Parents' education is, this is a question about whether or not I'll be the first in my family to attend college. And this question, neither of my parents graduated with a 4-year degree, and I will go ahead and say that that is true for me. If my parents had a 4-year degree, I would leave that blank. I'm going to go ahead and click next. That brings me to the third page, and this is some contact information. Question, do I reside or live outside of the U.S.? No, and they're looking for my home address, and so I'm going to enter that here. And the second address line is a really good place to add my apartment number if I have one, and I do. And I will choose my zip code, my state, city. That automatically populated the state based on the zip code. I think it automatically populated the city as well. And what county that is, and that is in Benton County. You'll choose the correct information for you. This question, if my mailing address is different from my home address, I should click yes. For me, it is not, and so I'm going to leave that blank. But if I clicked yes, it would pop up so that I can enter information about my mailing address. And that is where I want mail to come to about my application and other information for Southwestern. So I have the same address, so I will not click that. It's asking me for a phone number. I don't have a landline, so I'm going to leave this blank and instead provide my cell phone number and my email address. And this is the email address that I am using for all of my college applications and that I am checking on a regular basis, at least a couple of times a week, so that colleges can get in touch with me and tell me what I need to know. I need to enter that twice so that they make sure that I didn't make any typos. And you noticed that I did make a typo and went back and corrected it, but this is going to be their way of making sure that they know I didn't make a typo. Emergency contact name. This is not required, but I'm going to go ahead and fill it in and provide my mother's name. And I should give her first and last name and her phone number as well. She is my mother, so I will say that there. You can leave this blank if this is something that you don't want to share. Not sure why it didn't take the first time, but I can go back and fill that in. So click next, and I'm on section 4. This is information about the education that I've received. High school. Do I have a GED? No, I don't. And so when I click that, information is going to pop up to ask me about high school. I am currently in high school. I plan to graduate at the end of the year. And so now they're going to ask me some questions about my high school. What state is it in? In Oregon, so I will scroll down to find that. And it was doing a little bit of thinking there to pull up a list of all of the high schools in the state of Oregon, and I'm going to choose mine, which is Corvallis, and I'm going to graduate in 2021. My high school graduation date, I don't know it exactly, but I know it's in June, and I know that it's around the first week, and so I'm going to choose that and enter it here. College information. I have never attended college, so I'm going to say no. If I clicked yes, the same thing would happen and some more questions would pop up so that I could provide information about colleges that I've attended. So if you have attended colleges, go ahead and click yes. Those questions will pop up. You'll fill them out exactly the same way you did for the high school. I'm going to say no and click next. And look at that. I am on the last section. This is a question asking me what I plan to study and what my career goals are. And you'll want to read through this so that you have a really good sense of what you want to do. But I'm going to scroll down and answer the question. This is choose the area that fits my academic or career goals and interests. And I'm particularly interested in social sciences and education. So that's what I'm going to choose. And then that's it. My next stop is to press the submit button. And once I do that, I've applied to Southwestern and you can too. Congratulations.